It's the 20th anniversary of a book the Chinese Communist Party hates. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. The Chinese Communist Party maintains power through a stranglehold on information, total control of media, education, the internet. The party has systematically attempted to brainwash Chinese people into believing there is no China without the CCP, and the party is never wrong. Even this fashion statement cannot be wrong! As all of you watching know, around June 4th, 1989, the CCP's military opened fire on protesters in Tiananmen, by some estimates massacring 10,000 people. But in China today, most young people have never heard of it. All mentions of it have been systematically scrubbed from the people's memory. Modern Chinese history is full of cover-ups, crimes committed by the Chinese Communist Party that they've buried. Between 1959 and 1961, China suffered under the Great Famine. It was one of the worst man-made disasters in human history. It was caused by Chairman Mao's botched policies during the Great Leap Forward, which was supposed to modernize China, but instead led to the deaths of 15 to 55 million people. Officially, though, it was blamed on bad weather. So is this. A more modern example is the persecution of Falun Gong. About 25 years ago, the Chinese leader at the time, Jiang Zemin, began a nationwide crackdown on Falun Gong, although his larger aim was to build up a massive security state that answered directly to him. The official party line was that Falun Gong was a dangerous cult, and the party said all levels of society must dojang Falun Gong. Dojang means to struggle against. It's a horrifying aspect of communist culture, where the followers of the party, in order to present their loyalty to the regime, show their hostile attitudes towards whomever is targeted by the regime. In other words, the party hasn't massacred millions of innocent Chinese people, no. All those people wanted to destroy China, and they deserved everything that was done to them. Dojang is the same thing that happened during the Cultural Revolution to intellectuals, rightists, and class enemies, to the students at Tiananmen in 1989, and to anyone who refused to follow the COVID lockdown rules in the 2020s. The goal is always to focus the anger of the Chinese people at some group, so they never realize that their true enemy all along is the Chinese Communist Party. That's why the Communist Party is terrified of this book, 9 Commentaries on the Chinese Communist Party. It was first published 20 years ago this month in the Epoch Times, a newspaper founded by Falun Gong, one of the many groups that the CCP has persecuted. The 9 Commentaries details the entire history of the Chinese Communist Party and its crimes. For instance, it goes into depth on how the Communist Party got started and the brutal tactics it used against its own people to maintain power. Take the Yan'an rectification. After Mao's communist forces were forced to make a disastrous retreat called the Long March, after they were nearly wiped out by the Republic of China's forces in the Chinese Civil War, they arrived at a place called Yan'an. According to the 9 Commentaries, the CCP has depicted Yan'an as the revolutionary Holy Land. More like holy hell. The Communist Party was on the verge of destruction, and a lot of the members were not happy. So, Mao launched the rectification movement to root out what he called petty bourgeoisie toxins. People had to list all of their acquaintances since birth and all important life events. They had to describe all social activities they had ever participated in, with an emphasis on their personal thought processes during these social activities. And in particular, they had to confess any thoughts or behavior that opposed the party. Now that might strike you as some kind of weird religious activity, and you'd be right. The 9 Commentaries makes it very clear communism is a cult. And this book said that 20 years before James Lindsay made that cool. The Yan'an rectification only got worse from there. Yes, that's a young, malnourished Mao Zedong. During the rectification, Yan'an was called a place for purging human nature. The goal was to eliminate hidden traitors. And very quickly, everyone was turning against each other. Former comrades in arms did not dare interact with one another. No one dared to speak the truth or protect mistreated friends because each was trying to save his own life. The vicious, those who flattered, lied, and insulted others, were promoted, humiliation became a fact of life in Yan'an. It was either humiliate others or humiliate oneself. Those tactics became the core of how the Chinese Communist Party would deal with any issue, from the criticism sessions of the Cultural Revolution to the persecution of ethnic groups like Tibetans or Uyghurs, to even the disappearance of China's richest man, Jack Ma, after he criticized state regulations. Nine Commentaries is a blueprint to how the Chinese Communist Party operates. So as you can imagine, the Chinese Communist Party really hates this book. It's one of the most censored things in China, even 20 years after it was published. Studies of internet censorship in China consistently show the term Nine Commentaries to be blacklisted, with those sharing it at risk of arrest and imprisonment. And that's especially the case this year, the book's 20th anniversary. Local Chinese governments fear the Nine Commentaries will break through the CCP's censorship of its history, unravel its political indoctrination of the Chinese people, and encourage ideological dissent. That's because the series presents not a political, but a moral vision of China's future and a path to transformation. And in particular, it asks the reader to do something about the CCP. In just a few months after it was published, millions of copies had been sent to mainland China. Since then, it continues to circulate widely inside China, people sharing it despite the risk of arrest and imprisonment. The question is, what do you do when you find that everything you've been taught is a lie? That the great and glorious Chinese Communist Party is actually rotten to the core? You quit. The Nine Commentaries sparked a movement called Tuidang. It means to quit the party. Despite decades of brutal persecution and brainwashing, Chinese people are waking up to the true nature of the Chinese Communist Party. They range from rural farmers to intellectuals to retired military personnel to human rights lawyers, like Gao Zhisheng. He's a devout Christian who tried to defend Falun Gong practitioners using the Chinese legal system. Currently, no one knows if Gao is alive or dead. He's been imprisoned and tortured for almost 2 decades. After witnessing firsthand the cruelty of the party in 2005, he publicly quit the party. He said, "He quits the cruel, untrustworthy, inhumane, and evil party. This is the proudest day of my life." The party did not like that, which is why they disappeared him, and we don't even know if he's alive or dead. And still, people continue to quit the party. And not just a few. They're submitting declarations online saying they're through with the Chinese Communist Party. To date, more than 400 million Chinese people have rejected the party. Let me make this clear. They're doing that despite potentially massive consequences. This is a huge change from the days when people were terrified of even having a private thought against the Chinese Communist Party. And it shows how the kind of absolute control the party had over every aspect of people's lives is slipping. According to another famous Chinese human rights lawyer, Chen Guangcheng, the Nine Commentaries has basically spread everywhere in the country, with every household getting a copy. And Chen says it will lead to the collapse of the CCP. If the CCP were like a building, it was constructed with bricks, and now it merely consists of soil. The cement used before has lost its adhesion. Now it takes the power of everyone to push down this building. And it seems like that's true. We're seeing more and more social unrest in China. And during the white paper protests against COVID lockdowns, you had people calling for Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party to step down. 400 million Chinese people have personally rejected the Chinese Communist Party. Most have submitted their statements anonymously to the Tuidang website, since the Communist Party is a cult and they might do bad things to you. That does make it hard to independently verify the number. And as you may have noticed, 400 million people is more people than are currently members of the Communist Party. Chinese government data from this year has a membership roster of only 99 million. But a lot of people once joined the Communist Youth League, or the Young Pioneers. From an early age, the Communist Party makes people take a blood oath to give their lives to the Communist Party. Just like in Yan'an. The party wants to control your every single thought. Tuidang is a moral and ideological statement, rejecting everything the CCP has forced onto China. The goal of Tuidang is to get every person to reject communism. Since Nine Commentaries was originally written in Chinese and is geared towards a Chinese audience, the English translation can be a bit tough to get through. But if you're interested in getting a deeper understanding of communist ideology and see where its false promises lead to, I'll leave a link to an online version below. And instead of letting YouTube take you to some random video, click here to see another episode of China Uncensored that I think you'll like. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.